maintained simply by building an appropriate environment. Maintaining biological diversity is central to permaculture. So, following absurd legislation controlling the sale of seeds, people here have decided to fight back.
This is one of my favourites. It's an asparagus kale. It's a very tender kale. When it's a bit past its best at the moment. When it's younger, the tops are just like sprouting broccoli. You can pick them up, pick off lots and lots of little heads and steam them up. The only trouble is, you can't buy the seed of this one. It's a rare variety, which is why I'm saving my own seed from a good clump of very good plants. And hopefully I'm going to have enough to supply Henry Doubleday's Heritage Seed Library with some, so that other people can keep it going, and enough for the Chagford Seed Savers Club too. And if everyone did that with some rare varieties, we'd soon get the genetic diversity back, which has been decimated by draconian European legislation recently. We've got the worst legislation in the world here, and it's important that gardeners fight back at this bureaucratic insanity.
Chagford allotments are within walking distance of the centre of the village and the cafe, which brings producer and consumer into direct contact. The work here has already attracted a fair amount of media attention for its innovative stance on regenerating the local economy.
We rip that off. Can you get these little ones in here?
It's a place where families come to work and relax, where young children can be introduced to the wonders of nature. In addition, the Chagford initiatives are slowly getting known by foreign visitors who run similar schemes abroad. Today it's the turn of Edson Mashudu from Zimbabwe to meet local people and exchange ideas.
There's gooseberry clubs. There's clubs with everything in this country, but they you cook them, usually cook them and with sugar and make a pudding.
Okay.
But Eric actually does things with them. He makes pizzas with them and slices them up and uses them as a savoury as well. He does all sorts of interesting things.
Edson is coordinator of the Sustainable Agriculture project at Silvera House outside Harare. Financed by Christian Aid, his team are seeking to educate people in sustainable food production using permaculture techniques. The project makes a real difference to rural farmers during years of drought in Zimbabwe. When the rest of the countryside may be brown and scorched, the plots of people who took training courses remained green and productive.
This is actually another one, which is it's a bit of a shame because that will cross. But in fact, I've grown this one and this one together now for years, and the books say that they cross, and you get all sorts of problems. But in fact, they just, because the leaves are so different, you can actually tell the difference very simply. I think they, maybe if you sowed some from my packet, you get both coming up, but you can tell the difference, and they're both endangered varieties, and they're both very good. They're very tough.
Last year alone, some 300 farmers attended Silvera House, which means that more than 1,500 people will benefit from better and cheaper food production. Experience from Zimbabwe will inspire future schemes here in Chagford. As Nikki explains, the goal of sustainability is getting closer.
As the plans have changed with opening the cafe, so the other plans have changed around quite a bit as well, and we're now thinking much more along the lines of getting some land so we can grow food and use the compost from the compost project to help grow that food, and then we've got the cafe to sell the food once we've grown it. And we're also very interested in training and showing people how large-scale market gardening of organic produce could work. And it may be, depending on the scale that we go, using some sort of machinery. And to that end, I've spent the last year training in organic horticulture at Dartington, learning about some of these techniques of tractor-based and researching that a lot more. Because it's an area that there isn't an awful lot of information about. And I feel that it's very important for small communities to be able to produce their own food without having to import, carrots from Australia or have the ridiculous scenario of parsnips moving from Penzance to Lincoln and then back to Exeter before they're sold. We need to be able to grow good food organically where it's going to be consumed.
It's now about 15 years since permaculture was first introduced to Britain, and in that short space of time it's already made a major practical contribution to the way we think about growing food and creating viable economic communities. We're now seeing the first fruits of a revolution which could benefit everyone. Given the right regional marketing strategy, a 60-acre farm and a lot of hard work, permaculture provides jobs and economic stability. On Ragman's Lane Farm, close to the River Wye in the Forest of Dean, there's an example of what can be achieved. The most striking feature on this land is the newly created pond, where small farmer Matt Dunwall occasionally finds time to swim or relax. Having such a large body of water close to the farm buildings adds light to the house and acts as a safeguard against fire. Apart from providing a home for many species of aquatic plants and animals, this water serves many other purposes, as Matt explains.
Its main function is to provide a water source for the vegetable garden below. But we also find that we're able to feed the pigs from the pond to a certain extent, more as a sort of mineral supplement to the pigs rather than their main staple food. But this pondweed here, Canadian pondweed, is quite high in protein. And the reed mace, which you can see here, is very high in carbohydrate. So if you combine those and feed them to the pigs, preferably chopped up so that they can, so that they eat it basically, it forms a very nice pig feed supplement. So that's one crop that we have from the pond. It's also quite a rich source of protein. The tadpoles in this pond in March and April form a black strip all the way around the edge, and we raise about 150 meat chickens at that time of year. And they form this band of chickens all the way around the pond, eating tadpoles, which is nature in the raw, but it does serve to produce an awful amount of protein from a totally low input system. There's nothing that we have to do at all to provide that protein.
Additional design features increase diversity and productivity.
I'm standing on a chinampa, which is a fancy name for a piece of land sticking out into a body of water. When people build ponds, they normally build round ponds, which is a way of making the minimum edge for the maximum volume. And we all know that around the edge of a system is where it is its most productive. So the small fish and tadpoles will tend to live in the areas around the edge of a body of water. In the middle of a body of water, there's not much happening. On the chinampas, we've planted this willow, and we'll be using this to make artist charcoal and also weaving it as willow hurdles. You get phenomenal rates of growth from freshwater bodies like this. I planted these willows in March this year. It's now July, so 5 months later, they're about 9 feet tall. So you can get an idea of the rate of growth from this sort of system.
And that's not the whole story. The main reason for constructing such a large body of water is to be found a short distance away in the market garden area of the farm. Here they can grow a whole range of high-value crops and not have to worry about drought.